Thank you so much, Marshall. Such a pleasure having you here.
Oh, very happy to be here.
Thank you. That's what I was telling you, Marshall. I've had the privilege of meeting you first time in the year 2008 when you were in India. And since then, I have grown as an individual, as a coach, reading your books, watching your videos, listening to you, learning from what you're saying and what you're not saying. There's so many titles attached to Marshall. Marshall is an author, one of the finest coaches in the world, one of the most influential coaches in the world, author of so many books. Just curious, who is Marshall without his titles, without his books, without his speeches?
My mission as I've grown older is actually becoming simpler and simpler and simpler. I just want to help people have a little better life. So let us imagine that a few people who listen to us today have a little bit better life based on this call. That's good enough.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure people who are listening to this conversation, their life would be better for sure. Yeah. Marshall, if you were to restart your life from scratch, from zero, which is that one chapter of your life would you hold on to tightly and why?
I'd hold on to the whole thing. I wouldn't change anything. The reason is I've made many mistakes in life, thousands of mistakes. The problem is when we erase our mistakes, we erase everything we learned from those mistakes. And so I was like science fiction. And when you mess with the timeline, things can get worse. So the way I look at it, I was brought up very poor. The first 4 years I was in school, we had what was called an outhouse. We didn't have indoor plumbing. My school was ranked next to last place in the state of Kentucky in academic achievement. I wasn't brought up in Harvard Prep. I ended up with a great life. Really, what would I change? I'm going with nothing. I'm good with what I've got. I'm good.
Yeah, let's look at that, right? You're considered to be one of the most accomplished coaches. And if you were to revisit, if you were to put a finger on, what's the best piece of advice that you have received from someone that has changed the trajectory of your life?
Let me give you two or three. One is when I was a young PhD student, I was becoming self-righteous and preachy, and I was working down in the city planning department in the government. And my old advisor, Dr. Case, called me and he said, Marshall, getting some feedback here. You're very judgmental, negative. What's the problem? He looks at me and goes, oh, Marshall, you're a brilliant young man. You have discovered the city government of Los Angeles is inefficient. Then he said, do you have any other problems? Oh, he said, my goodness, you have discovered that when politicians get millions of dollars to donations, they're nicer to those people than people who give them nothing. He said, another brilliant observation. Now he said, Marshall, I've been working there 30 years. The guy pumping gas down in the corner figured all this out. You're not getting a PhD for this. Option A, you can continue to be a judgmental, whiny jerk, or option B, start having some fun and do some good. You notice? And by the way, if you continue with plan A, I'm firing you and you will never graduate. So you know what I said? Let's go with B. Let's have some fun. It was such good advice. Who was I? Judging everybody, preaching. Nobody made me God this week. So, it was really a very good, a good coaching lesson to enjoy the process of life. Don't be too judgmental. Don't think you're better than everyone.
It's easy said than done because, I've personally been in the space of coaching for quite some time now. And every time when I come across a coach, suddenly I realize that there's so much of seriousness in her life. And you just mentioned, let's have some fun. Just curious, how do you incorporate fun while you are in this space, while you're working with the top leaders in the world, while you are coaching a few of the best executives in the world? I've come across coaches who are too serious. Well, they take themselves too seriously.
I always have fun.
Yeah. How have you been able to manage that, incorporate that in your life?
I'm a Buddhist. Buddha was brought up, in a palace. He was protected from reality. And lived in a bubble. He was able to sneak out 3 times. You know, he learned on his 3 visits. 1, people get old. 2, you get sick, and 3, you get die. Old, sick, and die. All the money in the world, old, sick, and die. You know, he said having more is not going to be. It's not a good idea. It doesn't help. Then he tried to have less, starve himself, live out in the woods. Guess what? That didn't work either. You know, he finally be happy with what you had.
When did you learn that, and how?
Oh, I've been a Buddhist for over 40 years, a long time ago. So I've been studying Buddhism I've read 400 books on Buddhism. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time studying Buddhism. My Buddhist monk was named Thich Nhat Hanh. Wonderful man. And so anyway, you know, my life is short, be happy. People I deal with are all adults, right? I mean, if they never meet me, they'll be very successful. If they meet me, they'll be maybe a little more successful. Nobody's starving to death here. Nobody's starving to death. And so, yeah, you know, there's no use being that serious.
Yeah. I think that's one of the best advices that I have received in my life. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't give yourself too much of importance. And, you know, there was a time I used to think the world revolves around me. And then I realized that even when I'm not there in this world, nothing is going to change. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Life goes on, of course.
Yeah. Much help me understand. You've written few of the best books on this planet. As per Amazon, What Got You Here has been considered as one of the top 2 books ever written. What shifts have you observed in yourself from the time when you wrote What Got You Here, Will Not Get You There, and your recently published book, The Earned Life? What shifts have you noticed within that you may want to share?
The book, What Got You Here, Won't You There, by the way, just got ranked in Chief Executive Magazine in a survey of CEOs in America, one of the 10 best books ever written by, you know, according to CEOs. That book has been phenomenally successful. That book, by the way, I've done 51 books. That book has sold as much as the other 50 put together. Most of my books were purchased by my mother, my father, and my relatives, but you know, a few of them sold a lot. I've done 4 New York Times bestsellers. This book is a very different book. This book is a much more philosophical book about life. This is not a book about how to achieve more. In fact, this is a book that talks a lot about people who are addicted to achievement and the problems that come with that.
Yeah. While going through this book, for me, there were several aha moments. There were several instances where I actually took a pause, started to reflect on my own regrets and my own fulfillments in life.
Good.
Yeah. I'm still enjoying the pieces that you have written, and especially the way you have defined what it means to have the earned life. I just love that. I will come to that in a while. Would love to ask you a couple of more questions. You know, in most of the books you have spoken about Ellen Mullally.
Yes.
Right. I've had the honor and the privilege of doing some work for Ford.
Yeah.
And
was he there when you worked for Ford?
No. After that, in 2017 onwards, I started working with them.
Yeah.
On several occasions, you also spoke about that you choose your own clients.
Right.
Just curious, what are the characteristics that you look for before you sign a client for yourself?
Well, again, this came from my friend Alan. So, you know, for years, my coaching, I didn't get paid if my clients didn't get better. So better is not judged by me or them, it's judged by all the people around them. So, you know, you learn some humility when you get paid for results. So I talked to my friend Alan and I said, you know, Alan, of all the people I've ever coached, I actually spent the least amount of time coaching you, number 1. You improved the most, number 2, and you were great to start with, number 3. Then I said, Alan, I made a chart. On one dimension, it was called time spent with the executive coach, Marshall Goldsmith. The other dimension called improvement. There seemed to be a clear negative correlation between spending time with me and getting better. I said, Alan, the way this chart looks, had you never met me, you would really be good. So I asked him, what should I learn about coaching from you? He taught me 2 lessons years ago that changed my life. Lesson 1, your mission as a coach is called customer selection. If you pick the right customer, you will always win. You pick the wrong customer, you will never win. And he said, never make coaching about yourself, your own ego, and how smart you think you are. Make it about the great people you coach and how proud you are of them. Well, one thing I'm very proud of is my clients. Now, if you look at this book, The Earned Life, look at the first few pages. Those are my clients. And they're pretty impressive and amazing people. And what does the first paragraph in the endorsement section say? It says, listen, this is not about me, it's about them. The first paragraph says, these are great people. Let's say I'm great. It says they're great. Well, you know, hey, I always got ranked #1 coach in the world. Why? Nobody knows I'm a good coach or not. I may or may not be the best coach. One thing though, I got the best clients. Anybody would look good if you had my clients. So work with great people. It's like a ball player, ball team. Your team is all great.
What do you look for when you're looking for
one? I only work with successful people. I'm not in the fix the loser business. I'm in the help the winner business. So that's one thing I look for. Number two, I mean, very few people are going to hire me as a coach anyway. Why? My fees are astronomical. So, you know, I mean, I do a lot of volunteer work. So if I'm a volunteer, you got to be doing something important. And I'm like the head of St. Jude's. I don't charge him any money. Head of the Rockefeller Foundation, president of the World Bank. I do all that for free. So I do a ton of volunteer work. Head of the New York Public Library, you know, the Girl Scouts. So I do a lot of, but if it's not going to be free, it's either free or a bunch. And a bunch is a big number. So I've eliminated 99.9% of everyone just with the fees. So I'm not dealing with people that have huge problems. I mean, you know, my present coaching clients, are probably a third of them are billionaires. So that eliminates a lot of people. Then I only work with people who want to get better, are dedicated, hardworking. They're willing to get feedback. They're willing to talk to people what they learn, apologize for their mistakes, follow up on a regular basis, and get better. If they want to do that stuff, great. If they don't want to do it, it's okay. What do I say? Fine. Don't. Just don't waste my time.
I'm sure the number of times that you say no to a potential client would be more than the number of times that you would say yes and accept them as a client.
I do say no much more than yes.
You know, having worked with few of the best executives in the world, let's call them the captains of the ship, right? In your experience of working with those captains who are steering this ship, what are the commonly made dangerous mistakes that you have seen them making?
I was interviewed in the Harvard Business Review and asked a question, what's the #1 problem of all the people you've coached? My answer was winning too much. Win. If it's meaningful, we want to win. If it's critical, we want to win. If it's trivial, we want to win. If it's not worth it, we want to win anyway. Winners love winning. Everyone I coach is a winner. It's very hard for winners not to go through life constantly winning. You want to go to dinner at restaurant X. Your husband, wife, or partner wants to go to dinner at restaurant Y. You have an argument. You go to Y. It wasn't your choice. The food tastes awful. The service is terrible. Option A, critique the food. Point out our partner was wrong. This mistake could have been avoided if you listen to me. Option B, shut up. Eat the stupid food. Try to enjoy it and have a nice night. What would I do? What should I do? Almost all of us. What would I do? Critique the food. What should I do? Shut up. It's hard for winners not to win.
And what do you think? What is driving them?
Well, in our lives, everyone I coach, very smart people. Everyone I coach has taken test after test after test, thousands of tests. They had one goal, prove how smart they were. Over and over and over again. How many tests have you taken in your life since you were a kid? Hundreds, thousands. It's hard to stop. It is very hard to do anything beside this. Why? We have a whole lifetime of reinforcement of prove I'm smart, prove I'm smart, prove I'm smart, prove I'm right, prove I'm smart, over and over and over again. It's very difficult to stop.
In my mind, I'm just looking at the different clients that I have had the privilege of coaching and I'm working with. In my mind, I'm coming across two categories of leaders. There's category A, there's category B. Category A is, again, achievement orientation, very high on achievement orientation, and driven by some kind of fear, insecurity, a sense of inadequacy. Another category B, again, high on accomplishing and yet driven by some or the other sense of deeper meaning.
Yeah, I don't do therapy. So what are people's deeper motivations? I don't deal with that. I just help people change their behavior.
And that's where the concept of feed forward comes so handy in your conversations, right?
Yeah, I feed forward is a key to everything I do. I teach people to ask for input, listen, and thank people. You don't judge, you don't critique, you don't put them down, and you don't promise to do everything. Leadership's not a popularity contest. You promise to listen and do what you can. I've done this exercise with, I'm sure, a couple million people around the world. They love it. Doesn't matter what country I'm in. Like I did this in Russia with 50,000 people at once. I get up in front of the group and say, we're going to practice feed forward. And you're going to all pick one thing to improve. You're going to talk to as many people as you can. And here's the dialogue. You're going to say, my name is Boris. I want to be a better listener. No feedback about the past. Please give me ideas for the future to help me out. And whatever the person says, you say, thank you. The other person says, my name is Natasha. I want to be better at recognition. Give me ideas. Get ideas, say thank you. Shake hands, talk to somebody else, do it over and over again. I've done this with thousands of people around the world, millions of people around the world. People love it. They say it's positive, useful, helpful, or even fun. Why? It's positive. It's focused on what you can do, not what you can't do. And focus on a future you can change, not a past you can't change anyway. And Buddha said this. Buddha said, only do what I teach if it works for you. Okay, just don't do it. When I coach my clients, they don't argue with me. I give them ideas. They want to do it, do it. They don't want to do it, don't do it. I don't care. They're adults, right? Just don't waste time arguing.
You have worked with people from different countries. Is there any difference that you have noticed, observed when you're working with a typical Indian leader
No,
versus typical American
I
leader?
work all around the world, and you have to say there are huge cultural differences in a village in India and in a small town in Kentucky or in a little town in South America. There are big differences. I don't work with those people. The people I work with are highly educated. They usually speak fluent English. They've all learned the same things, and they're basically mega successful people. A billionaire in India has got a lot more in common with a billionaire in the United States and in France and in Japan than they have with a normal person in any other country. I'm not dealing with a random sample of humanity here.
You know, one thing that I'm picking up right now, and that's giving me a huge amount of clarity, is identifying who your target audience is. And I think that's where I have struggled for the longest period of time. The narrower I go, the
That
sharper
is
I
my
get.
whole job.
Mm,
Look
mm,
at this book. Let's see. President of the World Bank. That's good. You mentioned Alan Mulally. Yeah, CEO of the Year. That's good. Hubert Joly, CEO of the Year from Best Buy. That's nice. Francis Hesselbein won the President Medal of Freedom. Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer. Well, he's an impressive guy. Ashish Advani just got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The CEO of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. These are my clients. Work with them. And by the way, the other thing is some coaches say, I can't say who my clients are. Why can't you?
Yeah.
Well, why can't you say who your clients are? Are they ashamed to have a coach? You know who my clients are? Look in the book. Now, I have a funny story about the book and that endorsement thing. I went to a restaurant when I was very young, 26 or so. It was ranked #1 in California. I read the recommendations on the wall about the restaurant. One of the letters said, this restaurant is so good. If your name is on the wall, it is not a compliment to the restaurant, it's a compliment to you. They could paper the wall with recommendations. If they chose your recommendation, it doesn't say anything about them. Everyone knows they're great. It just says they respect you. I was 26 years old. You know what I said? I want to be the restaurant. I want to be the restaurant. Read the book. Those first 6 pages, your name's on that book. You're great. Doesn't say I'm great. You're great. If you're not great, your name's not on the book.
And that is where you started your journey.
Yeah.
And it's over four decades of experience that you've been further nurturing this for yourself?
Be the restaurant.
Yeah, yeah. In this book called The Earned Life, you have spoken about a life well lived. What does it
Yeah.
mean? And what advice would you offer to leaders working in the corporate arena? How can one
Well,
have that life well lived?
what's important in life? All right. What's
Mm,
important in life? Number one, you need your health, but the book is not about health. Number two, you need to have a relationship with people you love. Well, the book is not about how to find someone you love. And then number three, you need to make at least kind of a lower class, middle class income. Well, it's not about that. Assuming you have at least a middle class level of money, assuming you have someone you love and you're healthy, what matters? Three things. One, we need a higher aspiration in life. We need an answer to that question. Why am I doing this? People are working very hard. Why? Number two, then we need to have ambitions that are achievements. What are we achieving? And these achievements need to be connected to the higher aspiration. And then number three, our day-to-day actions, we need to enjoy and be engaged in the process of life itself. Assuming that you're doing what you love, that you are achieving, and it is connected to a higher aspiration, you just won. Now, some people are over-fixated on the aspiration level. They're lost in their heads. They have great ideas. They don't really achieve anything, but they're lost up in the sky. Some people are lost in the action level. In fact, the history of the world, most people are just focused on that day-to-day activity, living. Our ancestors were poor people. They didn't have any money. They just live day to day. You're in a cave. You're not thinking of higher aspirations. You're thinking of eating, right? You're just staying alive. The people listening to this call, the people I coach, don't have either of those problems.
mm,
They're stuck in the achievement phase. They are addicted, if we're not careful, to achievement. And they fall into a great trap. If I achieve this, I will be happy. They are addicted to achievement. Now, I just taught a class at the IIT, Indian Institute of Technology. Now, how easy is it to get into IIT? Is it easy or just ridiculously difficult?
extremely difficult.
I went to UCLA. UCLA had 165,000 applicants in the freshman class last year. IIT probably had 10 times as many.
Mm,
I'm teaching a class at IIT. I'm thinking, number one, nobody's going to show up. My friend is a patron, so he wanted me to do this. So I did it a favor. First, I thought, well, nobody's going to listen to some old man talk. They're not going to show up. Place was packed. Number two, I thought, well, these are young techie kids. They don't want to hear some old man talk about Buddhist philosophy. I looked up and I talked about aspiration and our ambitions and our actions. And I talked about enjoying the process of life itself. And I talked about what does all this mean? 10 of these kids started crying while I'm talking. They're just sitting there crying. They never had a childhood. Their whole lives have been this. Now, you know what they were told? If I ever get into IIT, I've made it. They got in. You know what they learned? Instead of this, you know what happened? This. It was harder. Very important. One of the guys in my group, this book was inspired by 60 people. My friend Mark Thompson and I spent 600 hours with 60 people over 2 years during COVID. Every weekend we talked to these people. Their names are in the book. Who they were, amazing people, basketball star, football star, Broadway star, head of the Olympic Committee, head of the World Bank, on and on and on. Amazing people. Every week they talked about their lives. One of the guys is named Safi Bakal. He said, I finally learned a great lesson of life. He said, and he's a brilliant scientist, I used to believe that I would be happy if I achieved more. He said, I finally learned something. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. And you can achieve a lot and be happy. You can achieve a lot and be miserable. These are independent variables. I said, Safi, I'm so glad you realize this. You already have a PhD in physics from Stanford. You've started successfully 4 companies. You're a multi-zillionaire. And you wrote a New York Times bestselling book called Loon Shots, and you've consulted to presidents. Now, if that is not enough achievement to make you happy, you really think a little more is going to matter? You're already at 99.9% of achievement now. You think any more is going to make any difference? Not really. He said, you're right. There's a Buddhist term called the hungry ghost, always eating, but never full. When we're addicted to achievement, we're always eating, but we're never full. The Bhagavad Gita, that's the whole point of the Gita. Never become fixated on results. Never become fixated on results. Do not place your value as a human on results. Michael Phelps, Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer, endorsed the book, right? I said, Albert, a year or so ago, Albert, how was your year last year? Pretty good. Came up with this vaccine, saved 1 billion lives. Hey, very good. CEO of the year, and company stocks all-time high, and employee engagement's highest ever. I said, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. What's your problem? He said, I have a huge problem. Next year. If Albert's value as a human being is he has to achieve more than last year, write it off. It will never happen for the rest of his life. He's never going to have a year like this. We don't want him to have a year like this. We don't want another pandemic. Well, Michael Phelps, world's greatest Olympian, 25 gold medals. What do you think about doing after winning the 25th medal? Killing himself. Why? He couldn't achieve more. Never place your value as a human being on that. Now, one of my favorite parts in the book is called the Marshmallow chapter. They have this research where you take a bunch of kids. So you give the little kid a marshmallow. And if you eat one, you get one. Oh, but if you wait, two for you. You get two. So allegedly they did these research, and the kids that ate one are losers. The kids that eat two become successful. And the message is delayed gratification is good. Almost every self-help book, delayed gratification is good. Exercise more, run more, work more. Delayed gratification is good. What they did not do in the research, though, is take the kid with 2 marshmallows and say, kid, just wait some more. We'll give you 3, 4, 5, 10. Keep waiting, 100, 1,000. Where does the story end? An old man sitting in a room waiting to die, surrounded by thousands of uneaten marshmallows. Sometimes you need to eat the marshmallow. Sometimes, if your whole life is nothing but delayed gratification, you know what you get a whole lot of? Delay. You know what you don't get any of? Gratification.
Something that stayed with me while reading this book is the definition, the way you have defined the earned life. Let me just read it for you.
Yeah.
It says, we are living an earned life when the choices, risk, and the effort we make in each moment align with an overarching purpose in our lives, regardless of the eventual outcome.
Yes.
Have you come across people who get addicted to their purpose?
There's millions of people who are like that. Look at India. How many people in India are addicted to achievement? How many of the parents of those kids in Indians?
I'm talking about the overarching purpose, not just goals.
How many people do that? Not enough. Some, but not enough. I mean, we all need a reason why.
And is it okay? Is it okay to get addicted to your overarching purpose? I'll tell you why I'm coming. Because you mentioned that you have been a Buddhist, and in Buddhism, they talk about detachment. So on one hand, we are talking about getting addicted to your purpose. On the other hand, Buddhism talks about detachment.
Right. Well,
what's your take on that?
If you're addicted to your purpose, it's the same problem. Now, the reason I say that's not typically the problem, most people I coach, that's not their problem. Most people listening to this call, that's not their problem. That's the problem of a few people. They're just focused strictly on what is my purpose, and then they often don't achieve anything, number one. And number two, they don't enjoy life. They're just lost up here in this higher order of things, which is fine for them, yet they're missing a large part of life. So to me, what's important is alignment. If you love what you're doing, great. You're achieving things, great. And it's connected to your higher purpose, you won.
Yeah. As much as there are several thousands of books written on purpose, there are so many people talking about on the very similar lines. But if you look around in the world, we have been a reason for creating so much of destruction. We have put the whole planet into peril. The world, the earth itself has not been able to nourish life. We are considered to be the most intelligent species with all the knowledge that we have. And we are at the trajectory of self-destruction. What's your take on this, Marshall? Why are we doing this thing to Mother Earth despite all the knowledge, all the books, all our understanding?
And my answer is, I'm certainly not an expert on that question. And my philosophy is I only answer questions when I'm an expert on the topic.
Let me just take one step here now. How have you been able to reach where you are? And how did you make it?
Number one, I've had great mentors. Great mentors. So Dr. Paul Hersey, founder of Situational Leadership with Ken Blanchard. Ken Blanchard, another great guy. Just saw him last weekend, still alive. Great mentors of mine who taught me so many things. And Peter Drucker, Warren Bennis, all these great thinkers, Francis Hesselbein, they helped me. And I didn't get here by myself. I have a program called 100 Coaches. And the idea of the program is this. A woman asked me, who are my heroes? My heroes are these kind and generous people who helped me. I would not be where I am without these people. They're my heroes. She said, you should be like these heroes. So I decided to give away everything I know to 15 people. And the only price is when they got old, give it to more people. Well, I make a little video and put it on LinkedIn. Very primitive video. I'm thinking maybe 100 people would apply. And I'll adopt 15. And I'm a nice old man stumbling through life. And they laugh at my jokes and they get old doing the same thing. In this case, I was wrong. So far, 18,000 people have applied to be adopted. And I've adopted about 400 people. And the program's called 100 Coaches. And I just give everything to people. And the only rules are it's all free. You just give something to somebody else.
And you've been generous in all that. I mean, there's so much of material available on internet. Everything is absolutely complimentary.
Now, by the way, I'm doing a new course that's going to be out very soon. I'm very proud of. I think it's got 50 different videos and courses and all kinds of stuff. And coaching.com helped me develop it. And I'm giving it all away.
Thank you for being so generous. Marshall, if God appeared in front of you, what question would you ask him?
I wouldn't. I just make 2 words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marshall. An absolute pleasure having you here. So much to learn from you just by your sheer presence. The clarity, the poise, the peace that you bring in. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.